Remember Lee Rigby? He was a British soldier chopped to bits on our streets in our country. It's almost swearing now to mention his name. People don't like to mention it, do they? They want to forget such things. For me, them two lads got the knives covered in blood. Any police force in the world that was armed would have put one straight in their heads. Yeah, not ours. And I understand you are accountable in this country and people are fearful of discharging their firearms. Remember the buses in London? Boom. Do you remember them? What about Manchester Arena? Yeah, a concert. Loads of kids attending. Do you remember that? Horrific. What about people getting chopped up on a London bridge? What about it? What about grooming gangs? What about, and this is a very real thing in our prisons, go and look on YouTube, plenty of videos. What about the pressure to convert your religion, or maybe you didn't have a religion whilst in prison? Many lads I knew who went to dispersal long-term prisons converted for their own safety in numbers. My gang is bigger than your gang, culture and religion. What about's just recently happened in the Commons last Thursday? There's now British MPs with bodyguards. Bodyguards. All these things and many more happening, not talked about. We don't talk about grooming gangs, do we? Nobody wants to. How many people on our terror watch list in this country do you think? And if you was to see figures about culture and religion of those people on the watch list, how weighted do you think those figures would be to a certain culture and religion? Of course there's good people. I was once bouncing at a pub. Right next door was the Nottingham Goose Fair, been going for years. I spoke to a very well educated and polite gentleman of some years who was someone big in the Muslim community in Nottingham, and he talked about the Goose Fair and the fact there was a beer tent. You could buy alcohol. He said as a practicing Muslim he chose not to drink. However, he wasn't offended by other people drinking, and that includes some fellow Muslims who do choose to drink. What he was offended by was Nottingham Council removing the sale of alcohol from the Goose Fair under the guise that Muslims would be offended. He says it's very offensive to me. They've done that with no consultation, and people now will look to people like myself as being part of that. He was a good man, him. I spent a good hour chatting to him. Lee Anderson has said some things. If you're not from this country, you don't know who Lee Anderson is, if you Google his name, it's all over the news now. He said some things about London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Basically, he said he believed Sadiq Khan was influenced by Islamists. Now, Sadiq Khan has got a checkered past. For me, quite often politicians can be judged by what they're not saying. and not doing. And for me, no mayor should have any say or influence how our British police conduct themselves. I think clearly we all now know our police work on a two-tier system. Just recently, a young man climbed the cenotaph, the monument, that it's there for all the people fought and died, lest we forget. Pulled out a lighter and he tried to set the flag on fire. For me, that is a hateful act. Imagine somebody climbing a monument and setting a Palestinian flag on fire right now. The police, get down, get down. And here's the other thing. Going back to Sadiq Khan, there's obviously hatred being spewed at some of these marchers. He remains silent. He's happy to spend British taxpayers' money on woke things. The New Year fireworks, bigging himself up. It stinks for me. There's a lot going on in this country. Hate crime, or whatever you would call it, against certain religions and cultures is going up. There is a cultural war going on. Politicians are playing a part in that. There's a lot of good people on both sides. The vast majority in this country are good people, despite culture and religion. There's a minority spoiling it for the rest. It's what these politicians aren't saying and aren't doing that is disturbing for me. I'm just going to finish off with this. Food for thought. Islamophobia is the fear of, hatred of, or prejudice against the religion of Islam or Muslims in general, especially when seen as a geopolitical force or a source of terrorism. The scope and precise definition of the term Islamophobia is subject to debate. Headlines. What is Islamophobia? Definition of anti-Muslim prejudice as Tories suspend Lee Anderson. Is Islamophobia taken less seriously than other types of hatred? Is hatred against Jews taken less seriously than other types of hatred? That's not a headline. I have added that. Muslim groups call for Tory inquiry into party's structural Islamophobia. Deputy PM says Lee Anderson didn't intend to be Islamophobic. Lee Anderson is refusing to apologise. He believes the things he has said are right. Just going to leave it there, guys. Thanks for your continued support. Thanks for coming. Al Sidi.